Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Alright, I, 18 male, could really use some perspective on a situation that's been brewing for a while now, and it's just come to a head. This might get long, so thanks in advance if you stick through it. I guess the best way to get into it is to start from the beginning, because this whole thing didn't just happen overnight. When I was about 6, my dad left my mom. He didn't leave because of another woman or anything like that. From what I understand now, he just didn't want to be in the marriage anymore. But at that age, I didn't get it. I was confused, hurt, and angry. My whole world turned upside down. My dad, who I had thought of as my hero, was suddenly gone, and he didn't seem interested in being a part of my life anymore. He would come by to visit sometimes, but it was clear to me, even as a kid, that he wasn't interested in being my dad anymore. After the divorce, my mom and I moved back in with her parents, and her uncle, mom's brother, who lived next door, really stepped up. He was only 25 at the time and already had his own son, but he took me in like I was his own kid. He and my aunt basically became my second set of parents. My uncle was there for me in every way that my dad wasn't. He took me to sports practices, helped me with school projects, and taught me all the things dads are supposed to teach their sons. In my mind, he became my father figure, and to this day, I still consider him my real dad. I've got nothing but love for my uncle, and I'll be forever grateful for everything he's done for me. For a while, I would still see my bio dad maybe 7 or 8 times a year. He had moved about 5 hours away, so it wasn't like he was close by, and honestly, it seemed like he had a new life that didn't really include me. He remarried about 4 years ago to a woman named Ada, who already had 3 kids from her previous marriage. And when I say my dad took to those kids, I mean he really took to them. It was like he was trying to make up for lost time with them, and in some weird way, it seemed like he enjoyed parenting them more than he ever liked parenting me. This is when things started getting weird. About a year after he got married to Ada, my dad suddenly decided he wanted 50-50 custody of me. Up until this point, he'd never expressed any serious interest in having me live with him or spending extended time together. But suddenly, after years of being mostly absent, he wanted me to come live with him for half the time. I didn't want to go. It felt forced and awkward, like he was trying to insert himself into my life after years of not really caring. He tried to make his place feel like home for me. He built me a room in his new house, bought me a bunch of new stuff, and would shower me with gifts every time I came over. One year, he even threw me a huge birthday party for my 12th birthday, inviting all these people I barely knew. But no matter what he did, it never felt right. He wasn't around for all the important moments when I was growing up, and I wasn't interested in pretending everything was fine just because he decided he wanted to play the role of dad again. So by the time I turned 13, I just stopped going to his place altogether. I was done with trying to force a relationship with him that wasn't there. My life continued as normal. My mom worked hard to take care of me, but things were tough financially. I didn't realize it at the time, but my dad had stopped paying child support as soon as I stopped going to his house. I found out later through my grandma that this was his way of punishing my mom for me not wanting to spend time with him. My mom couldn't afford to take him to court over it, so she just worked even harder, taking on a second job to make sure we were okay. I had no idea at the time, and I feel awful that I didn't realize what was going on. During this time, my uncle was still there for me every step of the way. Since I was spending most of my time at his place, especially when my mom was working late, he became even more of a father figure to me. He was the one I'd turn to for advice, help with school, and anything else I needed. When Father's Day would roll around, I stopped thinking of it as a day for my bio dad and started celebrating it with my uncle. He deserved it more than anyone. My cousin, my uncle's son, and I have this tradition where we make my uncle breakfast on Father's Day, give him a small gift, and spend the day with him doing something fun. We've been doing it for a few years now, and it means the world to me to show him how much I appreciate everything he's done. To me, he is my dad in every way that counts. So now, fast forward to this year. I'm 18, and I guess that means my stepmom Ada thinks I'm old enough to be part of my bio dad's Father's Day celebrations. A couple of weeks ago, she sent me a Facebook message telling me that her kids are planning to get my dad a car for Father's Day this year. Yeah, you heard that right, a car. And she says they wanted me to contribute 10% of the cost, which would be somewhere between $1,800 and $2,100. I couldn't believe it. Like, first of all, where does she get off asking me for that kind of money for someone who hasn't been a real bio dad to me in over a decade? My bio dad left us, stopped paying child support, and only tried to reinsert himself into my life when it was convenient for him. Meanwhile, my mom was busting her butt working 2 jobs to make sure I had everything I needed. And my uncle was the one who was actually there for me, raising me like a dad should. So I didn't really feel like giving Ada a polite response. I sent her a meme that just said LOL, and then followed up with a message saying she could use the child support my dad never paid to cover my portion of the gift. I didn't think it was that harsh, but apparently she did, because she blocked me right after that. Not long after, one of her kids messaged me, calling me an a-hole for not chipping in for the gift, and saying that I should be grateful for everything my dad has done for me. That message really pissed me off, because it felt like they were completely disregarding the fact that my dad has done the bare minimum for most of my life. Sure, he threw me a birthday party once and bought me some gifts, but that doesn't make up for years of abandonment. I didn't respond to the stepkids' message because, honestly, what's the point? They don't know what it's been like for me, and I don't feel like explaining myself to someone who's never walked in my shoes. But now I'm wondering, did I take it too far with the child support comment? Should I have just ignored the message from my stepmom and let it go? Part of me feels like I might have been too harsh, but the other part of me feels like I'm justified in not wanting to contribute anything to a man who hasn't been a real father to me in years. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for refusing to contribute to my bio dad's Father's Day gift, and for the way I responded to my stepmom? First of all, OP's stepmom's audacity is off the charts. She really thought it was appropriate to ask OP for over $2,000 for someone who hasn't been a father to him? That's insane. The fact that OP's bio dad stopped paying child support out of spite when OP stopped going to his place is all the proof anyone needs that he doesn't deserve OP's time, attention, or money. OP should stick to celebrating Father's Day with his uncle, the man who actually stepped up and was there for OP. OP owes his bio dad nothing. And now let's hear the community's opinion on the matter. Not the a-hole. What you said about using the child support money was savage, but honestly, he kind of deserved it. You've clearly been through a lot with your dad, and he sounds like he only started caring when it was convenient for him. Your uncle is the one who raised you, and he's your real father figure. If anyone deserves a Father's Day car, it's him, not the guy who ditched his responsibilities. Don't feel guilty for standing up for yourself. Your step-siblings have no idea what you went through. Whoa, not the a-hole at all. Your dad tried to swoop in after years of being absent and act like you should just go along with it? Nah, that's not how it works. Gifts and parties don't make up for being an absentee father. And as for your stepmom and her kids, it seems like they have this warped view of your dad as this perfect guy, but that's because they didn't experience what you did. You don't owe anyone an explanation, and you definitely don't owe them thousands of dollars for some extravagant gift. Absolutely not the a-hole. The way your bio dad treated you was horrible, and you don't need to feel bad about not wanting to spend your money on him. Your uncle is the one who was there for you through thick and thin, and it's completely understandable that you celebrate Father's Day with him. Your dad seems to have only remembered he had a son when it was convenient, and that's not something you can fix with money or gifts. You handled it perfectly. The LOL meme was a great touch, honestly. My cousin will be getting married just 6 days after my wedding, so all our wedding events are pretty much right after the other. So my sister's throwing me a bridal shower, and my friends have been informed for months to save the date. But my relatives have only just been invited 2 weeks before the actual shower, and it's all because of her. We knew if she knew about it, she'd want to do something super entitled, and she tried. She invited everyone through all the cousins' group chat, and as soon as this particular cousin saw the message, she immediately called me, which I don't understand why, since my sister is the one sending the invite message in the first place, and starts asking, "What's going on? What's happening?" As soon as I say my sister is throwing me a bridal shower, the first thing she says, literally word for word, "Oh, I want a bridal shower? Anna, me, let's have a bridal shower together. Instead of doing it at your house, let's do it somewhere else though. Like, my sister and I have been planning this for months. We've been running around every day shopping, spending quite a bit. And then here she comes, wanting to take over my shower and make it about her, because her own sister was too busy planning her wedding for her. paying for all the vendors and makeup and hair for her because she herself has no money to pay for her own wedding. I informed her this is something my sister is doing for me. If she wants a shower of her own, it's something her sister or her best friend can do for her. And even if I were crazy enough to agree, I know she wouldn't pay for any of it. She'd make her own demands for what she wants and how she wants it, and where my friends would be coming to celebrate it with me. It'll suddenly be about her. I hadn't even agreed to any of it, and she already tried kidnapping my bridal shower to have it somewhere else. I hadn't even said one word to reply before she already says we should do it somewhere else. And if we were to hire someplace out, I know she wouldn't pay for any of it. Her parents and her brother are paying for her wedding. Her sister is planning and paying for the vendors, her makeup artists, and to get her hair done for the day. All she's paying for is the small, tiny things. To conclude, in my best friend's words, instead of being grateful and happy to be invited, she tries to make it hers. Don't be surprised if pressure is suddenly applied to you and your sister by other relatives to accommodate the entitled cousin. But do not cave. Simply tell her no. There is no need for explanation. Don't be surprised if she tries to take over your shower or goes behind your back to inform relatives this shower is also for her. So don't forget to bring me gifts too. I have no doubt she'll spend the time at your shower going on and on about her own upcoming festivities. So take the high road and watch while she makes a fool of herself by trying to hijack your party. Well done for standing firm. No is absolutely a complete sentence and very appropriate here. I hope you, your sister, pre-warn all your friends about the attitude and behavior so they can shut her down immediately if she starts any shenanigans at your shower, allowing you to just relax and have fun. Personalized decorations with just your name and wedding date on them would be a good idea too. Little things you need to know. I am a 26-year-old female with a curvy body type, and I have a huge vertical scar from just below my sternum to my navel. I was given the scar because I needed emergency surgery. My life was at risk and there was no other way. Unfortunately, the surgery was botched. I only recently found this out a whole 2 years after it happened. I needed the surgery because I had a perforated stomach ulcer that was at risk of leaking stomach acid into my abdominal cavity. It would have been a smaller scar, but the surgeon accidentally sliced my liver while cutting me open and caused blood to spill out. I lost 3 liters of blood. This meant they had to open me up further than planned. Anyways, long story short, I could have died that night, and my scar is a battle wound. I'm quite proud of it. It shows that I survived, and I think it's sexy. It's also been 2 years since the surgery, and the scar has healed nicely. It's not nasty looking, and it will fade more in time. Now, back to the main reason of this post. I went to visit family a couple of days ago since restrictions in my area aren't as bad anymore. It also helps that my family agreed to only invite the vaccinated members. Well, my aunt's house has a pool in the backyard, and I was wearing a bikini. It was tasteful and not overly revealing. You know, not a thong bikini that my aunt decided to wear. But it of course showed off my scar, which I didn't think was an issue. Everyone was having a good time when my second cousin Melanie came over, pointed her finger at my stomach, and gestured in a vertical sense, clearly referring to my scar. She then made a face and said, "Can you cover up, please? Your scar is triggering me, and it's not okay for children to see because it represents violence." I'm just standing there with my other cousin Shannon, both of us wide-eyed over her phrase. I'm sorry, what violence does my scar represent? I asked her how it was triggering. Now, I'm autistic, and sometimes obvious social cues don't make it to my brain, and my whole family is aware of this. And she full-on says, so your scar is just ruining the atmosphere, and my children won't stop asking me questions about it. Like, not everything has to be about you. I told her that I was sorry it made her uncomfortable, but that she and her kids didn't have to look at the scar, and that I was not going to cover up because I wasn't ashamed of my body. She then huffed at me like the big bad wolf, who was never invited in the first place. There's a reason why no one invites her, and yells at me in front of my family. I asked you politely to cover up your ugly scar. Don't you understand how rude you are being to me? I told you your scar triggers me, and you should just try for once to not think about yourself. You are obviously trying to be the center of attention at my family's pool party by flaunting your accident at everyone. We all know you only had that surgery to get reactions from people. Then she stormed off like a toddler would. I went back to hanging out with our family, and everyone just laughed her behavior off. She was being a brat, no surprise there. I get it, my scar isn't pleasant to look at, but my aunt was in a string-thong bikini showing off her giant C-section scar, and Melanie didn't say anything about that. But because my scar didn't bring life to this world, it's okay to complain about. Okay, Karen. I brushed it off, but every time Melanie had to walk past me, she would say, "Ew, ew, ew, ew," over and over so everyone could hear her tantrum. Finally, I had enough when I heard her loudly explain to her children that their mommy's cousin has Munchausen's. Then I pulled her aside and flat out ripped into her in front of everyone, and her kids, who were preteen brats. And I said, "You know what, Melanie? Grow up. You're 37 years old, and you're being not only a bully, but also a complete a-hole. You are clearly ruining this own get-together for your own personal gain, and I'm sick of your BS. Either grow the duck up and get over the fact that people have lives that don't involve you, or get out and leave. No one wants you here anyways." She then started to fake cry. It was so obviously fake it hurt. And boo-hooed about how mean I am, and how all this could have been avoided if I hadn't have shown up in the first place. Later on, when she was leaving, her daughter walked up to me and said, "Mommy told me she wished you hadn't survived the surgery because you ruined her life today." Like, wow. Most of my family agree that she had crossed the line, but say that I shouldn't have snapped at her so publicly. I do think it might have been tactless to yell at her in front of her kids, but I did suggest for them to run off and get their shoes while I spoke to their mom. They just didn't listen. And when you learn to cover up your ugly personality, I'll cover up my scar. Your cousin needs to grow up. Big deal. You have a scar. It should be celebrated for saving your life, not condemned as a trigger. And what exactly is her trigger anyway? The real question is, why does she care so much? Explaining it to her kids doesn't even require many brain cells. She can just say you had a surgery to save your life and be done with it. Sounds to me like she just wants attention. Don't give it to her. You're not responsible for other people's triggers. Also, it's a surgical scar that you're owed to the world saying, "I survived, look at me thriving." I don't care if you don't think it's beautiful. I do. I shouldn't have to shrink myself to make you feel better. I, 18 female, am a freshman in college. My cousin, 30 female, is taking up her master's degree. She had to pass a thesis paper. The thing about my cousin is that since she was the golden child, she could get away with anything. She just throws money at someone to have her way. She, someone taking a master's degree, wanted me, a freshman, to write her thesis. We all know this is unethical, and it would get her barred from graduating if her professors knew about it. But since I was curious, I asked her what she needed help with and when the deadline would be. She told me she wanted me to write her thesis. I said I could help her, but not to the point of doing the whole thesis. She told me it was already due in 3 days, but she can pay me well. I asked her how much, and she offered me $20. $20 for a whole thesis that's due in 3 days. For context, academic writing services in our country is around $2,000. That's just the base price, so rush pricing is a lot more. It also takes at least a month to make. This makes the task not only impossible, but she'd also be grossly underpaying me. I declined, obviously. I was just curious to see how much the pay was going to be. Also, I wasn't really well versed in the field she's studying, so I don't know how she thought I was going to help her. She threw a fit and told me that if I wasn't going to do it for her, I needed to find someone that will. I looked for groups that takes up academic writing services, but she refused. I think she knew that if she were to ask a professional to write her thesis, she'd have to pay a lot more. She wanted someone that I personally knew, so she could just pay them a similar amount. I just ended our conversation by saying that I still had a lot of requirements to pass, and that I was already spending a lot of time looking for people to do her thesis. I don't know what happened to her thesis though, and I never bothered to ask since. Edit. Sorry, I think I should have been more clear. She wanted me to write up a draft that she could pass to her professor. Her words were, "I just need something I can pass so my professor has something to check." It will still be the thesis, but only the draft. She also said she'd give me the details of her study, but I don't think she knows how long it takes to research for related literature alone. Also, I looked for academic writing services for her, so she could see how low her budget for that kind of thing is. I can't really say no directly to her, since our culture is more family first. And being the youngest in that side of the family, I had to listen to what everyone says. I also don't want to cause trouble and rip the family apart even more. I'm actually just waiting for quarantine restrictions in our country to be lifted so I can move out and finally go no contact, which was my plan since I was 13. Long story. I just didn't want them to have something to say about me when I finally go no contact. Less trouble now, less trouble in the future. Write the first page really well. Then start rambling, and that you, the writer of this paper, is actually a college freshman who the master's candidate, your cousin, paid $20 to write for her. Copy paragraphs and paragraphs off random websites on the subject. Bonus points if the original author was her professor. In high school speech class, I consistently aced all my speeches, so one of my classmates, because he decided he liked getting stoned every day, asked me to help him write a speech. I helped him get the first half written and left him to finish it. The speech teacher looked startled as he gave his speech. After my ex-friend was done, the teacher asked who helped him write it. He admitted I helped him, so I spoke up and said I got him started, but he finished on his own. The teacher nodded and said, "I can guess where your help ended." The class was giggling and snickering at this because the speech was well written until it suddenly stopped meshing with the original premise or even reality. My great-grandmother survived Mengele twin experiments. She and her twin sister were the only ones in their family to survive the Holocaust. After the Holocaust, my great-grandmother went to Ireland and her twin sister went to Israel. But the necklace survived the Holocaust and thankfully wasn't stolen by the N during World War II. It's a tiny diamond on a gold chain and in a circular pendant, though the setting and chain have changed throughout the years. The story starts when my great-grandmother died of natural causes in 2016. She went peacefully, and I think she was relieved to go as her sister died a few years before. Every cousin on my side was anxiously hoping they'd get the necklace, and much to my shock and delight, and everyone else's disappointment, she willed it to me. My aunt, through marriage, as she married my uncle, let's call her EA, threw a fit and started shouting that the necklace belonged to her daughter, Lucy. Name changed for privacy reasons. Because she was older than me. Her tantrum, I'm pretty sure, can be heard throughout the entire neighborhood. Everyone was shocked, but Lucy seemed pleased because she thought that I would give up the necklace. No way in hell. After about 10 minutes of her sobbing and screeching at me to let her daughter have it because it was rightfully hers, as Lucy was the oldest female cousin, and I being the third oldest, it was my duty to give it to her. I still didn't relent to her tantrum. A few moments later, my older brother, a very tall man who towers over the rest of our family, and a current Marine who has been to Iraq and Afghanistan on multiple occasions, glared at her and got her to shut up. The necklace later went to me and I never take it off. I still get messages from EA saying that I'm being rude by refusing to give the necklace to Lucy, but I ignore them. I've stopped worrying about that woman a long time ago. Do you know why she left it with you? Maybe you're the oldest cousin through the matrilineal bloodline. You did say your aunt was through marriage after all. Technically, Judaism follows the maternal line, so maybe that's why. If the uncle married a woman who was not Jewish, then technically, until the daughter had her bat mitzvah, she would not be seen as such. With something as priceless as this necklace, I can only assume that's why the great-grandmother left it to OP. You're not being rude. You're honoring your great-grandmother's wishes. Something they should consider doing instead of being so selfish, spoiled, disrespectful, and rude. Your great-grandmother chose well, someone who appreciated the meaning and importance of that necklace and would not give in to mean people.